Welcome to a special edition of the Texas Porch, Texas Talk with a touch of sports. Hope you and yours are well out there. The first ever JP Solo edition. Finally, the show that the public demanded. The guys will be back for the next one, but from time to time I'll pop on with special interview subjects of a Texas nature. This idea came to me a few weeks ago when I saw today's interviewee shown on The Last Dance on ESPN a few times. Tom Dore was the television play-by-play guy smack dab in the middle of that era, starting in 1991 and finishing in 2008, so he saw it all, and our talk definitely represents that, but I could have talked to him for hours. And you might be thinking, what's the Chicago Bulls have to do with the great Lone Star State? Well, now Tom lives in Austin. Before his Bulls gig, he did some Longhorns and SMU broadcasting duties, and no surprise, he couldn't wait to get back to the great state of Texas. But I first met Tom by happenstance. I want to say it was either 2012 or 2013, around the time I started my Rice gig full-time. But one of the SIDs at SFA asked if I want to do the talent stats for the TV broadcast. They must have been desperate, but I don't think I'd ever done it before, but basically I would keep track of some stats or trends, give them to the TV truck, and write him some notes. And I had zero experience, but he was the coolest guy. And I kept in touch with him over the years, and he'd always been gracious, giving me tips, critiquing my broadcast. And Tom talks about his buddy, Michael Jordan, which had me even more glued to our conversation. He talks about getting some of MJ's money in his wallet, and I'm sure it went both ways, but he also tells an awesome story about them going to a movie in Salt Lake City one holiday. We also chat about the great dynasty that those Bulls teams were. So here you go, Austinite and former Bulls TV man Tom Dore talking about Michael Jordan and The Last Dance. Enjoy. How have you been, sir?
JP, I'm doing great. I had a blast being in front of all of that and, getting to know the guys. Michael, Scotty, Dennis, Phil, Jerry Krause, Jerry Reinsdorf. I know them all very well and talk to most of them still pretty often. So, and you know what it's like. I mean, there can be great players, but there's still the guys that you work with. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was a TV announcer, so if I needed something from Michael or Scotty, I could ask them, hey, I need this. And I got unbelievable access. I'd go to practices, I could go to games, I could go to meetings, film sessions. They didn't limit what I could do, and that trust was awesome.
Gosh, we could do a whole series on just Jordan alone. I'd love to hear a lot of those stories in a little bit, but just early on, your take on this, as I saw you've tweeted a lot about it, of course, but you got some early airtime. Was it episode 1 and 2? But what's it like watching the doc after reliving such an epic time and some of your favorite moments so far?
I thought in the first one it was really interesting that Michael kind of called out Scotty about not getting that surgery right after the season before, because Scotty wanted to have a great summer. And it really wasn't about having a great summer. Well, maybe part of it, but it was really more about him wanting to stick it to the Bulls a little bit. You won't give me a new contract, so I'm not playing at the start of the year. And I know Michael was always for get everything you can, but have your business done. And when it's time for practice, it's time for games. It's time to get ready for the season. That's what we do. And so I know that was a big thing for him.
Yeah, you mentioned in the first couple as well that I found myself asking over and over, what was Jerry Krause thinking? And kind of as a young fan, I guess Jordan fan really growing up, it just brought back some of those memories. Why was he breaking them up? But it really dawned on me in episodes 5 and 6 that the timing of breaking everything up, it seems to be just perfect. And the perfect script was written going back to the last shot, which they'll show here later on. But so maybe Krause wasn't the villain I was in my head trying to paint him out to be, but since you actually had that relationship with him, what do you think about that angle? Because it seems like they've made that to be an issue too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Steve Kerr said it really well. Jerry was really good at his job, but couldn't get out of his own way. There should have been a buffer between Jerry Krause and Phil and the players. There should have been somebody that could have done that, and that was their job, that Jerry was kept away from the guys, because then that anger would have simmered a little bit, and might not have been so prevalent as we went further, but it didn't. So, looking back, we can all wish we'd have bought Amazon stock, right? Or Apple stock when it was $1. There's so many things you could say, man, I wish I'd have done that. But you keep looking back, it doesn't help. So anyway, I think one of the big keys with all of that is that Jerry put together a great group. He really understood those pieces very well, and I think showed that he was deserving of all the love of Chicago. But since the people that Chicago loved, Phil, Michael, Scotty, Dennis, right down the line, didn't love Jerry, they weren't going to love Jerry, if you follow what I'm saying.
No doubt. And speaking of Phil, it seems even more reiterated how he was the perfect coach. And you saw Jordan's evolution with him early on, not wanting to play for someone that wasn't Collins, but when he finally got it with Tex Winter, and they've shown that evolution. But just how was Phil the perfect coach at the perfect time in that magical stretch?
Phil let you be who you were. Me as a TV announcer, I hosted his TV show. So, Phil let me be exactly who I was, and was great about doing that. You do what you need to do. I could come to practices, games, meetings, film sessions, all of that. And so, at the same time, everybody knew who the boss was. And if you crossed the line with Phil, it was hard to get back across that line the other way. And so as guys found that out and made that mistake, it got more difficult for them. You did what Phil told you to do, you were in good shape.
Love the Rodman episode more than I thought I would. What was Dennis like covering him at that time, and how that was, really accurate? I'd forgot. I guess I didn't know about that whole Vegas vacation, and just what was he like compared? Because everything I've read about him, books in the past, seems like he was the genuine nice dude that they've portrayed. But since you kind of knew him, so to speak, what was that like seeing that too?
I think Dennis is everything people don't think he is. Dennis is very shy, very quiet, and very reserved. I know you're going to say, and everybody else is going to say, this guy's on drugs. I want a little bit of whatever he's got, because he's nuts. But let me tell you a story, and then we'll get into why I say what I say. When he first came to the Bulls trainer was Chip Schaefer, and you've seen Chip a couple times in the series. Chip, great friend, and was a terrific trainer. It was a real loss when the Bulls lost him. And then he just went with Phil. He went to the Lakers with Phil. And so, I could go anywhere. I could do anything. My brother had a problem with his foot. And so Chip said, I was saying, yeah, it does this. And Chip says, look, I'm tired of talking to you. Bring your brother to the game tomorrow and have him come in. And so before, or practice or wherever it was, have him come in, and I'll take a look at it. So Dennis was on one table, and I just met Dennis a couple days before. And Dennis didn't say 4 or 5 words. And I thought, okay, I get it. It didn't matter to me. Mm-hmm. My brother came in and sat down on the table next to Dennis and just said, hi, Dennis, how are you? And Dennis didn't even respond. He turned away. So who Dennis really deep down is a very shy, very quiet, very reserved guy. And very damaged. He's had a lot of trauma in his life. And they didn't touch on that, which kind of surprised me. But as I got to know him, Dennis is the guy that would not only give you the shirt off his back, he'd give you his last hamburger from McDonald's. If you were hungrier than him, he'd give you both of them and then give you $20 on top of it. That's exactly who Dennis is. All the marketing stuff. I remember the day, I remember this. He was going to do a book signing the next day. And so he came over to me and he says, hey, wait till you see what, and there were a few other colorful words, but wait till you see what I'm going to do tomorrow. I said, okay, Dennis, I know you got this book signing, and we busted him on the plane. We busted him a ton about the picture on the book and the book. But anyway, so he says, I'm going to this thing tomorrow. I'm going to wear a wedding dress. I'm going to put on makeup and lipstick and the whole bit. And I remember Michael's comment, which I can't tell you. Michael's comment was just priceless about what the makeup couldn't do. But so Dennis goes down and does that, and then I see him. I think it was the next day. We were going somewhere on a trip, and he gets on the airplane, and he said, "Dude, what'd you think? How did it come off?" And I said, "Dennis, it was everything you wanted it to be, but why don't you show more of that?" And he said, "Dude, that ain't who I am." Madonna taught him when he dated Madonna. Madonna taught him all of that about marketing, about being someone else, playing a role off the floor. And I'll show you how smart he is. Dennis is really a bright guy. So Dennis understood what Madonna told him and explained to him. And by doing that, he picked up on it and he did it. I mean, all of that stuff, the different hair colors, the wedding dress, it was all an act. But he was so smart, he could pull off the act and still be who he was. And did it really well. And got the hottest looking women. I mean, Madonna, Carmen Electra. And Carmen's a sweetheart. Carmen's funny. We had a blast with Carmen when Michael was there. I finally said, Carmen, you got to help me here. And she said, you want to know why, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, at least you're man enough to ask me. Most people kind of beat around the bush. And she said, he's everything. He's that guy you want to take home and mother because he's so damaged. And yet he can be a little kid. His security guy is George. George is the guy that's always been with him. I don't know if they still work together. But George always called him Junior. Hey, Junior, because everybody'd be screaming, Dennis, Dennis, Dennis. So he couldn't determine which guy was his, where do I need to go? And so he'd start calling him Junior. And finally, Dennis said, why do you call me Junior? And he said, because you're the son I never wanted. But because he's just a little kid, he just has fun. So he goes, he comes in. I was doing Phil's TV show, and Dennis wanted to talk to him. So we're taping, and Phil says, hey, I'll be right back. Yeah, that's fine. No problem. And so he comes back in, and he's laughing, and he pulls me to the back of the room, and he says, Dennis wants a vacation. I said, yeah, I do too. I'm good with this. Phil, let's all go. And Phil just starts laughing, but it's like, we're a third of the way through the year or whatever it was. And so Phil says, all right, we got to finish this because I got a lot to do. And so he calls Michael in, and they do that meeting that he talked about with Dennis. And so he gave him 2 days. Like a week and a half later, Michael's like, where the hell is he? And so, but on the special, they portrayed him as still being in Vegas. No, his agent was really good at doling out money, so that Dennis didn't spend it all. And so, I'm sure the money ran out, and then he and Carmen came back to Chicago. So Michael just went over to his house and knocked on the door, and they talked about who does it have to be? Could it be Phil? Well, it could be Phil. But Phil said, I think it'll carry more weight if you go. And he came back, and he wasn't real good right away. And that's what you saw last week, I think. When he finally went over and asked Michael for a cigar, Dennis isn't real good with words. Mm-hmm. And so, not that he can't say them, it's hard for him to say what he really wants to say. And so, when he asked for a cigar, Michael got it. Michael understood. And from that night on, Dennis was just unbelievable the rest of the year, to the point where, despite averaging 5 or 6 points or whatever he averaged, I don't remember, he could have been in the MVP category for the league as well as he played. But he was a genius. Rebounding and defensive genius, like very few people ever have been.
Yeah, I thought that episode was brilliant because going in, you think it's going to be a Jordan-infused documentary with him having the final approval. And that gets into my next series of questions. Obviously, we could spend a month on this, but how does the Jordan that you knew and know compare with the one being depicted? And my side note to that is, at first, I thought, and I've read books, and even the couple times we've interacted, when I saw you at games, I'd ask you about that. But it seemed too sanitized from the stuff, but the last couple episodes, they got into the gambling, and it looks like in the future they'll have the Kerr altercation. But how does the one Jordan you knew compare to the one being depicted here?
See, I saw when I would deal with him, he was great. If I needed, hey, Michael, you're playing Drexler tonight. Pardon me. And just what he'd said last night is he didn't want Drexler to be. It's not that he didn't want to be compared to Clyde. He didn't want Clyde compared to him. And so those first couple games, Michael was just going to torment Drexler, and he did. And so that's who he is. He's that competitive. When we did an NCAA tournament pool, the bracket pool, just like everybody does. So we did it, and I won it my second or third year. I won it, and then I came in second, I think, the next year. So I won money. Maybe it was third, but I won money and won it the one year. And so the one time I won it, I looked over to him, and I had some of the money, and I said, "Thanks, Mike." And I put the money in my pocket. Oh, that burned him. And he told me later how much it did. But then the next year, he did like 5 entries, but still wasn't in the money. And that's where I came in second or third. And so again, hey, thanks for those extra entries, Mike. That's really great. So the next year, he did like 15 or 20 entries. And it wasn't cheap. I forget, it was $250 or whatever it was. And this was a lot of money. And so he didn't just want to win more money. He wanted to win the pool. And he wanted to have that over us. That's who he was. I went to, we'd bet on everything. And the gambling thing, I can get into that right now. We bet on what time the plane would land. We'd bet on whose bags would come out. We'd bet on whose car would be in what spot when we landed, until we figured out Michael was paying all these guys off. So that lasted about 3 trips. And then, okay, I realized that I'm the fish and I've been caught. But so we bet on what time the plane would land. Now, you're a radio guy, so you're going to understand everything I'm about to say. I had the digital watch on the plane. I had that stopwatch, so I could hit start. So when it was time to hit start, because we'd all bet on how long is it 2 hours and 15 minutes to New York. So we'd all put in whatever we put in, $50 or whatever, on what time the plane would exactly land, how long the trip was. And he'd stand right behind me and make sure that I hit start on my watch. And so he won, and other people would win. Pax would win, or Johnny Kerr, or whoever would win. And so finally, he won 2 in a row. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put a stop to this. So I went to the pilot, and I had a $20 bill that had a little blue magic mark on it. So I gave him the $20, and I said, Roger, he was a football player at Ohio State, Roger Ziney. So I gave Roger the $20, and I said, I need to know exactly how long is this trip going to take. And he said, okay, wins are this and, this. And this was all an act, by the way. So he says, all right, I want you to guess 2 hours and 15 minutes. Okay, I'll guess 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we put our guesses in, and you'd write them down. You wouldn't say them. You'd write them down. So, and then you'd put it into a hat, and then it was my job. I'd sort all the guesses. And so Michael comes in at 2:14, and I'm at 2:15. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. And so we're in the middle of the trip or so, and you feel the plane's going a little faster. Not a lot, but you know what I'm talking about, like a car that goes 3, 4, 5 miles an hour faster. So we land. We're about to land. We're coming down, and the pilot says, okay, we're X amount of time. And I realize Michael's going to win. I'm not going to win. And so we touch down right dead as the clock, and he's standing right behind me. All those seatbelt rules and all of that. There's money involved. He wasn't having any of that. So he's standing up instead of sitting down behind me. And so I hit the stop right at 2:14, and he comes over and sits right next to me in the seat. Everybody's watching this, right? He pulls out the $20 bill with the little blue streak on it that I gave the pilot. He looks at me with this big smile, like a 10-year-old kid who just, found another bottle and can go buy some more bubble gum or whatever. That big a smile. And he just looks at me, holds that $20 bill there for probably 4 or 5, 6 seconds, smiles and said, thanks. Puts the money in his pocket, goes over, grabs all the rest of the money, puts it in his pocket. And, you knew you'd been had. But the gambling thing, it was an escape, because you also saw last night that when we were on the road, he was a prisoner in that room. Everybody'd go up and try and visit him at some point in time on a trip, because you knew how tough it was. And so, you'd only stay 15 or 20 minutes, but you knew he was it was torture for him. So the gambling thing, we gambled on everything. So we're in, I got another story for you about him being a captive. We're in Salt Lake City, and it's Thanksgiving Day, and we're eating turkey at the hotel and stuffing and all that stuff. And so I'm talking to Johnny, and Michael's sitting across from us. And we're watching the football game, and it wasn't the Bears, so none of us cared. And so Johnny says, look, I'm going crazy. We got to go do something. And so, Michael's, okay, what are you going to do? And so I said, well, let me go look at the paper. Let's see what's going on around here on Thanksgiving Day. It's Thanksgiving Day. This is Mormon country, and I'm not making fun of Mormons. It's going to sound like it. I'm really not. I'm making fun of Michael as this story goes on. And so we're talking about what we're going to do. I'm paging through the paper. I come to the movie section. Hey, we go see a movie. Casino just came out. Oh, now he loves those movies. He loves Westerns more. He's a big Western guy. Outlaw Josie Wales, his favorite movie of all time.
Really?
But, oh, yeah. Oh, God, he loves Westerns. He and his dad would sit and watch Westerns when he was a kid. So, anyway, I say, but he loves the mob movies. I mean, loves them. So I say, hey, Casino just came out. Let's go see that. And he got real excited for a second. Man, I can't go see a movie. And I knew right what he meant. Not that he couldn't, but it was that there'd be 10,000 people there. And everybody want his autograph. So I said, Mike, it's Thanksgiving Day. The Mormons will hate you or want your autograph tomorrow. They don't care about you today. They're doing Mormon stuff. And again, I'm not making fun of Mormons.
I gotcha.
I'm making fun of Michael here. I'm really digging the knife into Michael's back. And he's dying laughing because it's funny. You don't care if it's at you. It's funny. So he says, all right, look, let's see if there's a theater nearby. So I get one of the guys over and say, hey, look, are any of these theaters that show in Casino, any one of them nearby? He said, oh, that one's only 2 blocks away. Okay, remember that. That guy said it's only 2 blocks away. So I say, Mike, there's a 3:45 showing. You want to go? Johnny wants to go. Mike's security guy. I mean, we're all in. Everybody wants to go. And Michael's like, look, there are going to be 10,000 people there. I can't do this. And I said, Mike, it's Thanksgiving Day. The Mormons will hate you tomorrow. Let's go today. So finally he says, okay, but this is all on you. Of course, now this is all on me. He's got to have somebody to blame here. So we walk, just as an aside, 2 blocks in Salt Lake City are like 18 miles, right? I mean, it's really, really long. We're walking, and Johnny Kerr looks at me. We can see the theater is still however far away it was. So everybody that's been to Salt Lake City downtown is shaking their head right now that's listening to this, because they know how long those blocks are. So we finally get to the theater, and Michael's just busting me. 2 blocks? You told me. No, I didn't tell him. You told me this was only 2 blocks away. I'm tired already. And I said, well, you're not in very good shape. You know, I'm not tired. So, but this is how we were. We walk up, and the guy taking tickets, there's nobody there. So we buy 10 tickets, you know, to see Casino, the matinee. And of course, his eyes get real big, but he doesn't say anything when he sees Michael. Just takes his money, gives him the change back. And then we go in, and everybody's getting popcorn and Coke. So those were the only 2 people in the theater. Nobody is there to see any other movies. No, so because I asked the guy, nobody. And so Michael could hear it. There's nobody here. So we go in, and this is 10 buddies that are going in to watch a movie. And we're like 15-year-old kids. Don't give her the money. Don't, you know, whatever it was. We were yelling at the movie. We had a blast. And so halfway through the movie, the film, you know, it's the old days, so the film breaks. They got to fix it. And Michael looks, I was right in front of him. He puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, dude, this is the most fun I've had outside of playing golf or basketball. This is awesome. Terrific idea. So, but I knew that wasn't going to last, you know. But he had a blast. It was just the guys. He could just be himself. They get the movie started. We watch the end of the movie, and we're all cheering and laughing. And so, again, like a bunch of kids. The movie ends, and, you know, again, we're still in this great mood. I feel his hand on my shoulder again. Hey, Dore, you need to go out and look and see how many thousands of people are out there. Because he said, I know what's out there. And Mike, it's Thanksgiving Day. Mormons will hate you or want your autograph tomorrow. They're doing Mormon things today. Again, I'm not picking on Mormons. I'm picking on Michael.
We got you.
And so we go, I walk outside finally thinking there would be no one there. Boy, was I wrong. There had to be 3,500 people standing out there.
Oh
they hadn't bought tickets to see. They had not bought tickets, but it was all sign my shoes, sign this. You know, one girl took off her shirt, signed. So, I mean, it was unbelievable. So now I got to walk back in and face the music, right? Because I have to tell him not only that there are a lot of people out there, but that he was right. That's the really tough part for me that I wanted no part of. So we get this plan. We put him in like a Muhammad Ali square, and we all walk out. And the problem we had was Johnny Kerr, who was like 75 at the time, was at the front. And so, you know, people are getting in front because Johnny's not going fast enough. Finally, Michael just breaks through and goes back. We get back to the hotel. I told you, you know, he's all over me. I told you what this was going to be like. Oh, God, it was funny. That's what the man was like. That's my buddy. That's the guy I know.
Oh my gosh, you made my year telling that. I know you've got to go here in a second, but obviously I'm obsessed with him. But just, I mean, I kind of know this already, but it doesn't seem like you're ever in awe. But just being in his presence, it seems like that's something that you'll always carry with you for stories like that to tell.
Oh, absolutely. Last thing. So we're at a playoff game somewhere, and I think it goes to double overtime, and he finally makes a shot at the end. And how we would treat each other is he gets on the plane, sits down, has something to eat, looks at me, and I'm laughing. And he's like, okay, come on, what is it? I said, it's about time. And he just dies laughing because everybody else is like, oh, you made the game winner. You saved the day. I'm like, it's about time. And he just, that's what he liked. Just being with the guys. He was, he's a piece of work. He can be a difficult guy, but if you do your job, he'll do his, and he's awesome.
The great Tom Dore, longtime Bulls play-by-play man. Appreciate the time. Living in Austin now. I didn't fully explain that to Texas tie-wise. Tom on a Texas podcast talking about the greatest athlete ever. But be well, my friend, and maybe we'll talk again soon. I appreciate it.
Sounds good, JP. See you, buddy.
Big special thanks again to the great Tom Dore, former Bulls TV play-by-play man, for his time talking The Last Dance and his Airness. Wow. What a treat. Hope you like that as much as I did. But you can find him on Twitter at Tom Dore. He's been live tweeting these episodes. And thanks for tuning in to this day or night. The guys will be back for the next episode here on the Texas Porch. Make sure you've subscribed to get the latest episodes and give us that 5-star rating in Apple. It's a massive help. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook as well, Texas Porch Pod. Until next time, have a great one. God bless, and we'll talk to you out here on the Texas Porch.
And he just looks at me, holds that $20 bill there for probably 4 or 5, 6 seconds, smiles and said, thanks.